Imagine, 3 Easy Steps to Change the World. This is the title for a book that will be coming out in the year 2000, and I'd like to share with you an introduction to this book. It starts out, 3 Easy Steps to Change the World was written to give people a chance to see a different point of view toward the world they live in and provide them with the means to change this world for the better. Perhaps the genesis for this book began October 19, 1991. Like any average American male, I watched television, especially sports, drank a little, worked Monday through Friday at a salaried job, provided for my wife and family, caring little about medicine, law, science, economics, politics, history, or religion. Then on the 19th, I came down with the flu, which kept me on my back for almost 2 months. I went to 6 medical doctors, received 3 different medications, was tested at UCI Medical Clinic, saw a counseling therapist, psychiatrist, another drug, and finally was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, from which I was told there was no real cure. I was just going to have to live with it. That was my first exposure to the reality that the professionals who take care of our lives are fallible and truly mean it when they say they are practicing either medicine, law, and so forth. It didn't take long before I realized I was going to have to start doing my own research into what is now known as alternative health. In the course of my studies, I first became upset at the information I was reading. I couldn't believe it. Then I became upset at the professionals whom I trusted with my life matters. Why didn't they tell me about other research? From one book, The Yeast Connection by Dr. Crook, I found many of the strange symptoms, and in a reference section at the end of the book, I found a doctor in Santa Monica close to my home. Dr. Murray Susser, who later wrote a book on chronic fatigue syndrome and started me on my way to recovery. I owe a debt of gratitude to Dr. Murray Susser for believing in me and giving me confidence that I would recover. And I did. In September '92, I decided to utilize public access television to produce a program entitled Imagine, the one you're watching now, which allowed individuals like Dr. Murray Susser, who was my first guest, to have an opportunity to express alternatives to the mainstream way of thinking. Since then, I branched into law, economics, history, science, religion, and education, providing the people of Long Beach with over 300 programs regarding alternatives. Many of my guests spent their lifetimes researching their particular area, and I was fortunate enough to receive their best documentation from book, tape, or video format. The culmination of their information is the basis for this future book. I don't wish to convince you of anything. I merely want to foster discussion in regards to alternatives in the areas that most affect our daily lives. First step to take to change the world is to identify the problems and their causes. You cannot have world peace without understanding the root cause of war, have a clean environment without identifying the true causes or pollution, or have freedom unless you understand the nature and cause of your slavery. There are many foundational beliefs in the areas of science, health, law, economics, history, religion, education, which cutting-edge researchers have spent their lifetimes documenting as inaccurate. I have been fortunate enough to meet and interview over 200 such researchers on my TV program Imagine over the past 7 years. I hope to share with you the best of their best documentation supporting these contradictions to best aid you in identifying causes. Complete bibliography will be available for those who wish to research a specific area in this book more in depth. Information on this tape will be taken from government sources, peer-reviewed journals, or mainstream newspapers. Only facts will be presented, out of context from the original sources due to space constraints, but opinions and conclusions will be left up to you, the reader, and further research too. Typically, there are 3 reactions to the information you'll read. Complete denial, because it shatters the foundations you depend upon. Blind acceptance because you're open to anything new. Or skepticism followed by careful cross-examination of the facts presented. I prefer the latter. If any fact contained herein can be proven incorrect, please supply your documentation to enable this author to an opportunity to correct inaccuracies before publication. The author is not anti-anything, especially not anti-government. This book has been written to foster discussion regarding the subjects important to our everyday life, which usually draw little or no attention. Though information contained herein may have been reprinted in some alleged extremist publication, does not reflect upon its accuracy, merely the use of it in a different context. For example, if Mother Teresa stated 2 + 2 = 5, and Adolf Hitler stated 2 + 2 = 4, does not change the validity of the statement, merely its source. None of the facts presented are intended to support or deny any world conspiracy by any group. The author firmly believes proper inquiries concerning the information provided by you provided to you, the public will change the world for the better regardless of any alleged plan to control the world. Upon completion of this book, you will know what approximately 99.99% of the world does not know. A brief example of information that will be presented in this book would be, for example, in health. Let's take some bare facts on cancer that you may or may not be aware of. Quoting, "The prime cause of cancer is the replacement of the respiration of oxygen in normal body cells by a fermentation of sugar." Lecture of the Nobel laureates, June 20th, 1966, by two-time Nobel Prize winner Dr. Otto Warburg. There he's stating the prime cause of cancer, which we often hear that we don't know what causes cancer. He's talked about it right there, a fermentation process of sugar. There is, however, one specific type of highly pleomorphic microorganism that has been observed and isolated consistently by us from human and animal malignancies of every obtainable variety for the past 20 years. New York Academy of Sciences, October 30th, 1970. This was presented. A microorganism was found to be causing this fermentation process in the body, causing cancer in every single malignancy they observed in humans and animals. You didn't hear that, did you? That could be from some type of infection. 60% of all cancers in women, 40% of all cancers in men may be due to dietary nutritional factors. Committee of Diet, Nutrition, and Cancer, National Academy Press, 1982. They now are starting to acknowledge, finally, that yes, your diet does have an impact on whether or not these type of so-called microorganisms can cause this process, anaerobic process, what we call cancer, so the cells don't differentiate, and then they end up becoming the cancer that exists in our body. These are three different approaches which probably are not something you've heard of and not part of your fundamental belief in what causes cancer, besides cigarettes and alcohol and other things that we're told day in and day out. Asamanin allo resulted in the initiation of immune attack, necrosis, and regression of implanted sarcomas marine in mice, 40%. And this was normally fatal with mice, marine lymphoma. This is the Molecular Biology, 1991, Volume 3, in June. Now this is stating that aloe vera, in its whole form, was stopping the spread of cancer and causing it to regress and go in remission, perhaps a cure. The growth of human cancer cells was selectively inhibited by ozone. This is published in Science magazine, Volume 209, August 22nd, 1980. Does it make sense? Asamanin is something that promotes white blood cell activity and the ability to recognize cancer cells. That's aloe vera, I should say. And ozone prevents an anaerobic atmosphere in the body so that cancer cells are unable to proliferate or ferment in an atmosphere that is oxygenated. Another example, with the frequency instrument treatment, 16 cases were treated. 14 cases were signed off as clinically cured. R.R. Reif, at the USC Medical Research Committee Chairman, Dr. Milbank Johnson. This was in 1930. Using a frequency device, they're able to arrest or stop the progression of cancer and place it in remission so that it no longer could continue to grow. Now that's some of the information just to give you an inkling as to what will be contained in this future book. Once you have read and researched the information contained in this book, you may wish to conduct further research into a special area of interest to you, such as cancer, AIDS, diet, whatever, or perhaps you're in law, you want to find out more research on law or the monetary system. Whatever your area of interest, you might want to continue using some of the sources quoted here. Please notify this author if you find any information that may be of service to the rest of the public. Step 2, you probably have already begun before even finishing the information because you will naturally want to share what you have learned with your family and friends. The second step to changing the world is spreading the information you learn. Be prepared for extreme reactions from friends and family, as this author has personally experienced on many occasions. A number of your friends will most likely attempt to marginalize this author by name-calling or association with some extremist group. That's myself. You must understand groups that your family and friends belong to will influence their rational thinking. Groups based on gender, race, nationality, state, age, religion, profession, politics, or ancestry provide the foundational beliefs which naturally, no matter how well-intentioned, censor certain information from the group such as the information presented in this book. Remember, approximately 99.99% of the people on this earth do not know all this information in this context that you will have just read when you finish this book. So be kind to the people around you when you are present, when you present the documentation. It is not their fault that they were never taught this information. And for the most part, the 99.99% of the people are good, honest people doing what they truly believe is beneficial for the world based upon the foundations they have been taught by higher authorities and the mainstream media. Do not assume the people you share information with lack intelligence. I truly believe the majority of those you will share information with will be intelligent but ignorant. Ignorant in the sense that they ignore information because of their foundations. As you read this book, you will see some large financial interests who, for competition and profit's sake, would prefer this information to remain dormant, and rightly so from their perspective. They will use the media, TV, newsprint, magazines, radio, etc., to keep the status quo, but as my colleague, a former newspaper writer, said, the truth always comes out. I agree. That is how this author discovered this research from others who spent years searching for the truth, as Mulder says, because it is out there. You and I have an advantage over those who wish to keep their profits by pressuring the media, because market research demonstrates that the most effective means of persuasive communication is one-to-one personal contact, which means we will be far more effective in influencing others than any TV's news program, no matter how many times it is played. Grassroots is the key to change. The few people you share with will share with others, and so until the number becomes exponential. The one obstacle to personal contact effectiveness would be if there was not a solid foundation to base your statements, and that is the point of this book. To supply you with the facts you need when you need them, from the horse's mouth, so to speak. If you are more ambitious, please feel free to call in to talk radio, write letters to the editor or the producers of television programs, fax documentation to any media you follow, as this author has accomplished on a number of occasions with great success. One hint to being successful with contacting the media is to avoid your opinion. Read your documentation, play dumb, and ask a question. An example is this author had discovered information from congressional record of the number of biological agents, including botulism, anthrax, and human genetic material that was shipped to Saddam Hussein for several years prior to the Gulf War, with the understanding this could be used for experimentation. This information was in congressional record. All the records were there, the date of the shipments, how much was shipped over there, and to whom, the Atomic Energy Commission of Iraq. So the idea that he did not have biological weapon material is ridiculous. We supplied it with him. Now, having made that statement, I never made that statement to the Los Angeles newspaper, Los Angeles Times. But what I did do is I faxed the direct copy of the record from congressional record to the LA Times. Within 1 week, an article was printed, slightly slanted, but presenting the same information I'd give on the fact that had we accidentally supplied Saddam Hussein with the biological and chemical materials which he could have used on our troops. And it's ironic, but I found this was an effective means of getting the word out. By not beating someone over the head, just present what you have and play dumb and ask the question, because perhaps there is an explanation, and you allow them the opportunity to look into it themselves, rather than appearing as some kind of an extremist, which marginalizes any individual, and it's not good research anyway. At this point in time, if you have learned this information and shared it with others, you will definitely arrive at the third and probably most vital step to changing the world. Take an action by questioning. This may be difficult. Perhaps a picture may be worth 1,000 words, but a question could help 1,000,000 lives. Confucius, Buddha, Socrates, and Jesus knew the value of a question, and to this day remember them for this ability. Was it not Jesus who said, "What has this woman done?" when the adulteress came, when the prostitute came in front of him? I mean, a silly question. They're all yelling out loud. What did he say? What has she done? Or who is this face on the coin? Always a question to put it back. Not trying to explain something, but to have them think. Confucius did this. Buddha did this. Siddhartha, to question, to allow people to think, rather than try to beat them on the head with what you think is correct. They knew the value of a question, and to this day remember them for this ability, as I said. Asking the right question to the right person at the right place and the right time. Let me repeat, asking the right question to the right person at the right place and the right time can do more to influence others than 1,000 statements of fact. It puts the authorities who run our lives, whether they public or private, on the spot to answer inconsistencies instead of putting you on the spot for presenting facts that appear sheer lunacy. You have probably already asked these questions to the professionals who run your life, and for the most part, you may be met with condescending attitude or anger for having even questioned. These knowledge hoarders, as I call them, doctors, lawyers, accountants, bank executives, clergy, teachers, public servants, and media producers, editors, these knowledge hoarders, I say, and received varied responses, but how many will provide documentation contradicting the information presented herein? In other words, they will try to marginalize you, but how many will actually give you information that will actually contradict what will be presented in this book? If they do, please give it to this author. I really would appreciate it. Quite often they will use vernacular words from the profession which confuses you and makes you feel stupid to keep their control over your life. Do not become angered at these professionals. Don't. They were never taught most of this information after all their years of education. Feel sorry for them, for they probably had good intentions but were misled. It would be wise at this point for you to get professional dictionaries in the areas of science, health, law, finances, education, and religion. If you talk their talk and walk their walk, they will be more apt to respond to your question with humility and not arrogance, as this author has had happen on a number of occasions. An example would be vaccines. I presented the following information to a nurse at the school my daughter goes to. She has Down syndrome. And I give credit to her. I just presented the information and asked questions. I didn't say, I'm not going to do this, or I'm anti this, or anti that, because I can't make up those decisions until I'm presented with all the information. And quite frankly, I never know if I'm going to be given all the information. I can only do it on a case-by-case basis to see what's going to work most effectively for my daughter or not work. Examples of information on vaccine I presented. Decline in morbidity and mortality from the pertussis was observed in the U.S. and other Western countries prior to the institution of vaccination. This statement was made by the Panel of Review of Bacterial Vaccines and Toxicology Standards and Potency by the FDA and the Bureau of Biologics. So they made the statement that pertussis itself, the shot, already the incidence of it was on the decline, more rapid than after the shot was given. Of 479 whooping cough patients, 60% received less than 3 doses of DPT vaccine. 40% were fully immunized. Morbidity and mortality weekly report. What does that mean? 60% received 3 doses of DPT or less, but they did receive their vaccinations, and 40% were fully immunized, and yet they came down with whooping cough. That's almost a 50%, 50-50, either you take it or don't. Significant reactions to pertussis vaccine have included fever, high fever, a transient shock-like episode, excessive screaming, somnolence, convulsions, and encephalopathy. And this was prevented by the Bureau of Biologics to the FDA again, the people in charge of monitoring vaccines. In 1978, 4 instances of sudden infant death syndrome were reported from Tennessee in children who had received DPT vaccine within the preceding 24 hours, American Academy of Pediatrics. Every case of polio from 1980 to 1989, excluding imported cases, was caused by the vaccine, Centers of Disease Control. Of the 21 cases of polio which occurred in this country in 1982 and 1983, all were vaccine-related. Morbidity and mortality weekly report from the Centers of Disease Control. Millions of people have been injected with a monkey virus known as simian virus 40, which was found in 1961 to be contaminating polio vaccines. The virus causes cancer in hamsters. Science magazine. Now, these are the peer-reviewed journals that I'm talking about, or the government sources, or the mainstream papers. This is not the far right or left-wing publications the information is coming from. Be your own judge. Okay, believe is beneficial to the world based on... At this point in time, you've learned information, share with others, and you'll definitely arrive. I've mentioned that. Let's go on to the next part of this introduction. This is an exciting period of time, which it is. The apathy of the world is at an all-time high. Now that seems like a negative statement. However, this apathy has led to Congress counting one handwritten letter as 200,000 people with the same concern. This is what I call the inspiration factor. Imagine, you may feel you are only one person. What can you do? Now you realize you can count as 200,000 people. Apathy works to your benefit, and you inspire other average Jane and Johns like you and me to do the same. Just like some of the movies that some people treasure as inspirational or sentimental, such as Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and the filibuster he does in the end as one person. Well, it's amazing what one person can do. Though you may become discouraged by the reactions you receive, share with those you feel would want to know. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's third law, which demonstrates for every action you make will come a reaction, and eventually changes you never dreamed of. Keep in mind that I make no blanket condemnation of individuals, groups, companies, professions, or government entities, and neither should you. Support those who support the issues you agree with after evaluating the facts, regardless of whether they are communists, Christians, government agents, servants, activists, patriots, liberal, conservative, or whatever religion or political designation, but belong to no group that blindly has you accept their issues or values. In this manner, you become a follower of the right issues and a leader of your own life, seeking only the advice of practicing professionals. You may be quite afraid, as I was when you first read this material. However, it is you, not the so-called political leaders, who possess the most power. It is the meek who will inherit the earth. Fear is merely the inverse of knowledge. The more knowledge, the less fear. And the greatest fear to the chaotic status quo of this world is the possibility that people will join together on issues, and the right and the left wing will join together on certain issues or points. So they may fly like any bird knows how to do. Because who could ever see a bird in nature fly with only one wing or another wing flapping, the other one does nothing, going to counter or against the other motions of that one wing? And even though it's a silly analogy, but we have a right and left wing that we consider. How we got that term, I don't know, but it makes sense that if they're both going in different directions, progress is almost at a standstill and impossible. However, both of them find issues they can agree on that protect the rights of people, individuals, you'll see quite a bit of progress. For if they don't fly together, they will never get off the ground, as I stated. Yes, it is my opinion at this time that I want to state in this book that there is a God or a Creator, and may the Creator bless each and every one of you. That is the introduction to the book, which is planned to be coming out in the year 2000, preferably around September or October. Now, to continue on, I've mentioned some of the information here, the documentation, which I wanted you to be aware of. Now, in addition to that, the documentation form, this is how it may appear in the book, just to give you a sample of some of the writing that'll be appearing and how it may be phrased so you can understand the flow of it. For example, how many people know really what's going on in the universe, or what scientists, what's the breaking, cutting-edge research? Foundational beliefs we are taught in school regarding the universe are: it began with the Big Bang, is ever expanding, is composed of celestial bodies which are devoid of life, consists mainly of vacuous space which contains nothing, is linear in reference to time, and is the totality of all existence. In regard to the Big Bang, Stephen Hawking states that perhaps instead of a Big Bang, it was a slow fizzle. But as Sir Isaac Newton stated, it was gravity that draws matter together. Yet he also stated as a third law that for every action there's an equal opposite reaction. What is the opposite reaction to gravity that prevents the inevitable big crunch of the universe once the expansion slows down? It is a repulsion expanding force, as Dr. Walter Russell explained in November 2nd of 1930 New York Times. For every mass in the universe is a complete pump oscillating between two equilibrium dead centers of opposed force. Each mass in the universe is revolving around every other mass in elliptical orbits determined by their mutual ever-moving compression and expansion, explained Dr. Walter Russell. Does this theory have any evidence to the existence of a repulsive force in direct opposition to the force of gravity we know of? Einstein once mentioned this possibility, but then rejected it as a mistake. Or was it? Now, according to the Rocky Kolb and Adam Rice, both astronomers from Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory at UC Berkeley, who recorded data showing supernovas moving away from each other. Regular energy and matter always attract other energy and matter. However, the energy of space is repulsive. I quote, LA Times, February 27, 1998. Now, I can go into more information about this, but perhaps many of the concepts that we have in regards to our universe, matter, energy, are not really as strong of evidence as we believe. And we may need to take another look at them. And this is just an inkling of some of the science article that may be presented. Here's an example of what we call modern health, just an article, a couple of paragraphs to give you an idea what will be in the book. Where to be without our health? Is it one of our most fervent preoccupations? To stay well, look young, and live a long life. And one of the foundational beliefs we adhere to is the necessity of doctor, MD, in order to check our body and save our life in time of need. Without doctors, what would happen to our lives? In 1976, the people of Bogota, Colombia had to survive 52 days during a doctor strike. without help. The National Catholic Reporter documented the results, a 35% decline in the death rate. Well, you may think that would occur in a third world country where the doctors are not as good as the industrialized nations. However, in 1973, in the country of Israel, the doctors, for political reasons, reduced their monthly patient contacts from 65,000 to 7,000. The result of the Israel population's health was a 50% reduction in the death rate. Again, you may think this would never happen in America with our excellent health care, but if you ask the National Morticians Association of Los Angeles Division, they'll inform you of an 18% drop in the death rate during the Los Angeles medical doctor strike. This was confirmed by Dr. Milton Romer, UCLA professor of healthcare administration, who surveyed 17 major hospitals during the strike, and he found they performed 60% fewer operations. Fewer times a doctor touched you, the fewer times people died. Now that's just another sampling of the articles that will be coming out in this book to be printed in the future. The last thing I want to mention is a plea for you, the audience, the individuals who are watching this, to the author who seeks your help in finding information. I want to ask for your help on a research project culminating in a book to be finished by the year 2000, next year, in September or October. It is my desire to offer to the public a summation of difficult, if not impossible, to find information in the areas of science, health, economics, law, politics, history, religion, and education. A kind of Guinness Book of Records for strange but true facts to challenge people's thinking. This information must come from one of the following: government documents, peer-reviewed journals, or mainstream newspapers, and it must contradict mainstream thought. In other words, it must come from the horse's mouth. I am asking you to assist in this endeavor because I know you would be an excellent source of alternative information to make the public think. I feel it is time to share the information we know with the public in a manner which can not be disputed and allow each individual the opportunity to make choices we are already making. Though many books cover the areas to be mentioned in this project, none that I have ever seen cover the spectrum of the subject areas to give people from different focuses a whole picture as to what is happening. In other words, covering all the topics in one book. In addition, I want this book to serve as a defense for individuals when confronted by professionals who wish to challenge them, so they will have the facts in one book, not several million files. Below is a partial list of the subject and subtopic areas I intend to cover. If you want this list, please call me and notify me. If you have any information in these areas or any other subjects you feel need to be included, please contact me as soon as possible. I will send a sample format page layout for those interested in writing for the book. Specifications for writing are for the following: 1 to 5 pages. I'll go into that later. Please take the time, and if you'd like your group acknowledged for the information you give me, I will be glad to do that. This has been Imagine. 3 easy steps to change the world. It is possible. Take the time and read this book when it comes out. Thank you.